You come from a neighborhood that probably has one of the first gang injunctions ever imposed. 1992. This was the beginning of the gang injunction. Uh, Today, the city of LA actually stopped using them. I think in 2018 or 2019, they said they became obsolete.
Okay.
But in the early 90s, they were new. Do you know why your neighborhood was picked for a gang injunction back in '92?
Just prior to 92, there was it started to be a lot of drive-by shootings. Just prior to the injunction, a couple of years, there started to be a lot of drive-by shootings, and that doesn't happen in Burbank. And one of the shootings, an off-duty officer got hit in the hip. So he wasn't even from the Burbank area. He just happened to be in the area when the drive-by. So it kind of like just kicked it off, started to really piss them off where they couldn't control us. There was even times like they would block us off on the street. And then if you were a gang member, you weren't allowed off the street. You're going to lock you in there. They were doing everything to stop us, and they just couldn't do nothing. So eventually they came out with that gang injunction. I was shocked because I was in the county when they came out with it. I was already in the county fighting my case.
So you was in custody when they decided to impose the injunction against Elmwood.
Yes.
And did you ever get served?
Yes. I was one of, I think, 5 people that got served.
Did they do their injunction, the city of Burbank versus BER, or did they actually list the names of gang members, or did they put John Doe's? How did they identify y'all in this document?
By our names. If you look on a gang injunction in the internet, I don't know if it's because it's my last name is Acosta, which was A. I am the first one that they named as a defendant, Leonard Acosta versus the city of Burbank gang injunction.
Well, it's the city of Burbank versus you.
Yeah.
And then did they list other names too?
They listed, I believe it was 88 names.
And so whatever came about it. So you're in custody already. Do they serve you in jail?
They came and served me in jail. They said I had the option to go to court. When I tried to go to court, I couldn't go. They wouldn't let me go. County, so.
They wouldn't. Oh, because it was a civil case.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so the injunction, it gets approved by the judge, and it goes into effect.
Correct.
But what actually happens? You're in custody, but do you hear what's going on the streets?
Yeah, I heard that there was a couple of homies that got busted for being on the block, and they were taken in, and then they would tell them they're on probation. They would take them before a criminal, put them on probation, and if they got caught again, they did a year. I don't remember anybody that I know from my neighborhood that did a year, but I know that they were pressing hard. They put a little, from what I heard, they put a little trailer with police at the end of the block so that it's a dead end. They knew who was going in and out. So all they did was just move everybody to a different section of the city.
Okay, and then the following year, the city of LA does a big injunction against Blythe Street. Did any of those guys know about the injunction against your neighborhood, and was there any communication between the two neighborhoods about this injunction?
Not that I know of. There wasn't. As far as I know, it was Blythe was getting a lot of publicity, a lot of newspapers, TVs, everybody talking about it. Very little people were talking about our injunction. But I think because our injunction, I don't think anybody really understood what it was.
Yeah, it was very new at that time.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really understood what it was.
Well, do me a favor. Explain how you understand an injunction.
I understand an injunction as a civil abatement. I understand that in order for you to violate that civil abatement, then they would take you to a criminal and put you on probation, and then they could do whatever they want to you. What I didn't understand is how they can list somebody that's never been arrested or somebody's never even been FI'd But just because Alex Alonso was in the car with me when I got stopped, somebody, a known gang member, all of a sudden you're on a gang injunction. It was to the point that these guys could not walk, sit, or drive, even in their own neighborhood. You know what I mean? Where they lived, there was homies that were jumping out the back windows and jumping the fence so they wouldn't get caught on the street. So you can't be with somebody else. You can't have another homie across the street and you on this side of the street, and they would get you that you're together. That was the no association clause. That's what made my neighborhood different than any other injunction that was out prior, because I think there was one or two injunctions out prior. One was an apartment building, the other one was Gangster Crips or something.
I think the Playboy Gangsters.
Okay. And theirs was they didn't have a no association clause. They could still be together. They just couldn't kick it right there. Us, we couldn't kick it there and we couldn't be together. So it was that no association clause. I couldn't have no association with anybody that was close to looking like a gang member.
Now, the point you mentioned about some people can be included, never been FI'd. So that means that in some of these injunctions, there are actual people that are not from the gang, they're not from the barrio, but are listed in the injunction.
Correct.
Do you know if that happened in your case where you're looking through the names and you're like, okay, yeah, he's from the neighborhood, he's from, but this guy's not, but he's named?
Correct.
Oh, so that happened with yours?
Yeah, there's maybe 10 or 15 of the guys that are on there, girls and guys, that are not from the barrio. And a lot of things that they used too was when they do the civil abatement, they submit evidence, right? They got to submit evidence of the gang membership, gang crimes. And they have about 10 or 15 crimes on there. And we'll say, okay, there was, on this date, there was a shooting, a gang-related shooting on an occupied motor vehicle. There was 3 people in the car, unknown if somebody was hit, unknown of the car, no license plate, no victims. We can't find the victims. And this happened multiple times on our gang injunction where they were saying that something happened, but they had no proof of it happening. So that's what they use as evidence, which I don't see how they used as evidence.
Yeah, I think over the years there's been so many criticisms for the gang injunction that eventually 2018, 25 years after they were using them in the 80s, they decided that they probably weren't a good tool. They were a little bit harassing. They were a little abusive. But I'm thinking here that your neighborhood is the first barrio to have an injunction. Can you think of another that had it prior to 92?
No.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think they tried to do something in Pomona in 89, 90, but I think it wasn't I think it was just an address. And I can't think of anyone. So
I know there was one. It was an apartment building. That was it. It was just that apartment building they couldn't be in. That was it.
What city was that in? I remember I remember it, but I can't remember where it was.
I can't remember what city.
Yeah, I actually wrote a whole article. I have an article that I wrote called "Political Geography of Civil Abatement and Gang Injunction Strategies in Southern California." I wrote this article in the fall of 2002, and I might post this. So check the show notes for this episode. I'll post a link to this article I wrote. And if I can find your injunction, is it okay to post the documents to your injunction? It's already public record.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm gonna dig up Sonny Boy's injunction papers, and I'll put a link in the show notes of this episode so you guys can check that out. So do you know how long did they impose it for? Did it officially end, or did they just die out?
I haven't been in the neighborhood like that in years. I got out in 2000. And yeah, I went back to the neighborhood. And at that time, for instance, one time they drove into the neighborhood and there was about 15 of us and we all broke. We all took off. I jumped in some lady's window and I was hiding and she was like, just stay here until the cops leave. Like, they were cool. The neighbors were cool with us. But so in 2000, I thought it was still on. I don't know. I didn't take a chance. I was like, I'm on parole. I'm out of here. You know what I mean? So I don't know if it ended. I didn't know anything until you told me right now in 2018.
Yes, well, that was the city of LA, but I think a lot of these injunctions just kind of died out without any official announcement that they're ending. They just stopped. I think they got the memo to tell the police stop, enforcing it.
Yeah, because we're like, if you go to my neighborhood, we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks away now. Small blocks. Completely infested with the neighborhood versus, on Elmwood. So there's same thing. Nothing's changed.
That street is the roughest street in Burbank.
Yes.
I'm thinking that one day the city of Burbank is going to say, we're going to buy up all these properties and then we're going to tear them all down and then we're going to put up like condos or some fancy stuff.
Well, that's what they did on Elmwood. That's how they got everybody out of Elmwood, was the fact that they bought up the whole block. One of the owners that owned most of the apartments, he would not sell. They were trying for years. But once he died, his son sold it.
But which block was I on when I came to visit?
On Elmwood.
But Elmwood
Lake.
They still had a bunch of old buildings on that block.
Yeah, but they're fixed up compared to the way it used to be.
Okay.
They're nice compared to the way it used to be.
But it still looks like this is the spot where the homies hang out there.
Yeah, it still looks like it.
Yeah, it still looks like the hangout spot.